This exchange gets right to the core of a growing concern in American democracy. Are there still real limits on presidential power? Senator Adam Schiff isn't asking abstract legal questions.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, I believe that a lot of the corruption that we're seeing in the administration and the White House traces back to a single decision of the Supreme Court granting the president immunity, absolute immunity when it comes to certain core functions of the executive, a qualified immunity as to other official acts. The only area where a president would be personally liable for prosecution would be purely personal conduct, which is hard to imagine what that entails given that the president is president 24 hours a day. You were part of the president's legal team, defending the president, articulating the president's position in Trump v. United States. I want to ask you about that. In the Court of Appeals, John Sauer, one of the counsel for the president, was asked by a Court of Appeals Judge Pan in the D.C. Circuit whether under your theory of the case, his theory of the case, the president could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political opponent and not be subject to prosecution for it. Sauer's answer was effectively, that's right. Unless he were impeached first, he would not be subject to prosecution. Is that your view as well?
I think a similar question was also asked at the oral argument at the Supreme Court a few months later. I think the Supreme Court has now set forth a test in Trump versus United States that would address that hypothetical situation, which, based on my relationship, I might add, I think is outlandish, and I see no reason to think that that hypothetical would ever be a possibility.
Well, so is it your view as well, as it was Mr. Sauer's, that yes, the president could assassinate a political opponent and not be prosecuted for it if his party won't impeach him in the Senate?
I think Trump versus United States that you mentioned, Senator, now has addressed to some extent the impeachment judgment clause, and that is set forth in the opinion and would be something that I would be bound as precedent to apply if I was to address.
With my hypothetical, what's your answer? The president orders SEAL Team 6 to kill his political opponent, one of them, maybe several, uses the military to do it, so it's within the scope of absolute immunity. Is it your view that he is not subject to prosecution for that if the members of his party will not impeach him?
Yeah, with that hypothetical or any hypothetical that you might try to pose, Senator, I would just refer to the test that the Supreme Court has set out.
I'm asking you your view, so just tell me yes or no.
Yeah, and I want to tell you that as a judicial nominee, I don't want to prejudge any case, regardless.
Well, I'm not asking you to prejudge. I'm asking you to talk about your view and also what you argued, what you counseled the president in that case. Did you make the argument as a member of the president's legal team that, yes, he could assassinate his opponent if he used the military to do it, and if his party wouldn't impeach him, that he would be protected?
Yeah, so I can't get into any privilege conversations, as you know, due to attorney-client privilege, but I would refer you to the remarks that John Sauer had at the Court of Appeals in the Supreme Court.
Well, the remarks that he made were, yes, that's correct, he would be immune. So I don't hear any disagreement with you. Do you disagree?
I would disagree with your characterization of how he responded to that question. I think he said it was outlandish, would not happen, and that there would be a process to hold someone like that accountable. And I think that
the question from the judge was, if he were not impeached first, is that your position? And that was Sauer's position. It sounds like that is your position as well. Let me ask you about a different part of the court's opinion, that is that the only area where he's truly liable is purely personal conduct. So let me ask you this. If a president uses their official position to enrich themselves, is he immune, or is that purely personal?
So Chief Justice Roberts asked a similar question at oral argument. I think counsel referred him to
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I want to refer you to the same place, the United States versus Brewster.
Don't refer me, just answer the question. In your view, if the president enriches himself through his office, is he immune, or is that purely personal conduct?
Yeah, so I think the United States versus Brewster decision said
you're not answering my question. Let me ask you a different one, see if you'll answer that. If a president took bribes to change the country's policy in the Gulf, purely personal or subject to immunity?
Brewster dealt with bribes, and in that case, the court said that a legislator could be prosecuted for bribery.
We're not talking about legislator. We're talking about the president of the United States, who has immunity now, thanks to your work in part. So let me ask you another question. If a president demanded money from a media organization in order to approve a merger, immune or purely personal conduct, subject to prosecution?
Every hypothetical situation will be addressed by the test in Trump versus United States on what type of immunity would apply.
Yeah, so you're not going to answer the question. What if a president falsely arrested a sufficient number of senators such that he couldn't be impeached? Is there a remedy for that?
For each of these hypothetical situations, the Trump versus United States test would be applied.
Okay, the Trump versus United States test would be applied, so the president is using the military to arrest members of Congress to prevent his impeachment. What's the remedy?
In each of these hypothetical scenarios, Senator, the The remedy is...
What's the remedy?
The court would go through the different types of presidential power that might be at issue. There's a different test for absolute versus...
He's passed the test. He's got immunity unless he's impeached. That's what the court has held. And he's not impeached because he can't be impeached, because he's arrested enough of the Senate to prevent his impeachment or even an impeachment proceeding. What's the remedy?
So, Senator, as I've said, for each hypothetical scenario you're trying to present, the court would look at the different tests that the Trump versus United States would present.
I'm just going to have to conclude here that you don't want to express your view on it, because I think it's a shocking view. I think it was a shocking view that John Sauer expressed in the Court of Appeals. I think it's a shocking view that you hold, that the president's authority is so profound that he basically is above and beyond the law, that there's no remedy for a president who would abuse his power the way we have already seen and I fear we'll see in the future. I think the Roberts Court will go down in history. That will be their legacy as having enabled the worst form of corruption we've ever seen in the Oval Office. And you'll be a part of the team that made that possible. I yield back.
Thank you. I would point out the implication that Mr. Smith...
Here, he's stress testing the boundaries. He brings up the Supreme Court's decision in Trump v. United States, which expanded presidential immunity and then pushes it to its logical extreme. That's a familiar strategy in confirmation hearings, but Schiff is making a distinction here. He's not asking how the nominee would rule in a specific case. He's asking whether there are fundamental limits at all. As the questions escalate, from political violence to bribery to using power to avoid impeachment, the pattern stays the same. No direct answers, just legal framing. And that's where Schiff's frustration really builds, because from his perspective, this isn't about hypotheticals anymore. It's about accountability. If a president can act using official powers and be shielded from prosecution unless impeached, what happens if impeachment itself is blocked? That's the scenario Schiff is laying out, and the lack of a clear response raises serious concerns about whether the system has enough safeguards. For viewers, this moment highlights something bigger than one nominee or one case. It's about whether the principle that no one is above the law still holds in practice, or whether it's being eroded by legal interpretations of executive power. By the end, Schiff makes his position clear. Without firm limits and clear accountability, the risk isn't theoretical, it's real. If you want more breakdowns that help you understand the stakes behind moments like this, follow along.